The tapping was faint, barely audible over the frantic thumping of my own heart. It was a rhythmic, desperate little sound coming from the direction of the backyard. For a week my calls had gone straight to voicemail. Texts unanswered. My daughter Chloe, a fiercely independent 30-year-old, had never gone silent for more than a day. My mind, a relentless engine of catastrophe, had already cycled through every nightmare. A car accident, a sudden illness, a random act of violence. But finding her front door unlocked, her purse still on the hallway table, and her phone plugged in on the kitchen counter, those details painted a picture far more chilling than any anonymous hospital bed. This wasn't an accident. This was an absence. And now this tapping. Tap, 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 tap. I shouldered the door open, my old bones creaking in protest, and stepped into the sterile silence of her home. The air was still and carried the faint, sweet scent of the lilacs she always kept on the kitchen windowsill. They were brown and wilted now, a week dead. The tapping was louder in the backyard, a frantic Morse code against the quiet. I moved through the tidy living room, past the bookshelf filled with her favorites, past the framed photo of us on her graduation day, her smile so full of light it made my chest ache. The sliding glass door to the patio was unlocked too. I slid it open and the sound became crisp and clear. It was coming from the far end of the yard near the garden shed she used for her pottery supplies. The shed was a small wooden structure painted a cheerful sunflower yellow. Now in the fading afternoon light it looked like a tomb. "Chloe," I called out, my voice a dry rasp. The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was heavier than the sound. It pressed in on me, thick with dread. I took a step onto the patio stones, then another. The grass needed mowing. Her favorite hummingbird feeder hung empty, swaying in a breeze I couldn't feel. Then the tapping resumed, faster, more urgent, and this time it was accompanied by a muffled, desperate sound, a human sound, a sob. My legs, which had felt leaden with fear, suddenly found a desperate strength. I half ran, half stumbled across the lawn. The shed door was secured with a brand new heavy-duty padlock, a padlock I'd never seen before. A cold fury, sharp and clean, sliced through my panic. Someone had put my daughter in here. Someone had locked her in this dark, confined space for a week. "Chloe, baby, it's Dad, I'm here," I shouted, my voice cracking. A frantic, muffled scream of relief was my answer, followed by more tapping against the wooden wall. I grabbed the padlock, yanking at it with a strength born of pure adrenaline. It held fast. I looked around the yard for something, anything, to break it. A rock, a stray piece of pipe. There was nothing. The garden was too tidy, too perfect. "Think you old fool, think." I ran back into the house, my eyes scanning wildly. In the kitchen, tucked into a drawer full of takeout menus and rubber bands, I found a small hammer. It was a puny thing, more for tapping in picture hooks than for breaking steel, but it was all I had. I raced back to the shed, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "I'm going to break it, honey, move away from the door," I yelled, my words tumbling over each other. I brought the hammer down on the lock with all my might. The impact jarred my arm up to the shoulder, sending a spike of pain through my arthritic joints. The lock didn't even have a scratch. I hit it again and again, grunting with the effort, tears of frustration and terror blurring my vision. The tapping from inside had become a steady, rhythmic beat, as if she was counting my blows, willing me on. On the fifth or sixth strike, the hammer's head simply snapped off the handle, clattering uselessly onto the grass. I stared at the broken tool in my hand, a wave of hopelessness washing over me. I was an old man, a useless, weak old man. My little girl was trapped a few feet away and I couldn't get to her. I slumped against the shed door, my forehead resting on the warm wood. I could hear her moving inside, her muffled sobs. I started talking, my voice low and soothing, the same voice I used when she was a child and had a nightmare. "It's okay, sweetie, I'm right here, I'm not leaving, we're going to figure this out, I'm right here, Chloe, can you hear me?" 2 sharp taps, yes. "Good, okay, good." My mind raced, searching for another solution. The hinges, could I pry the hinges off? I didn't have a crowbar, I had a broken hammer. I looked at the metal hinges, thick and rusted. They were nailed in with screws, not nails. I'd need a screwdriver, I didn't have one. I pushed off from the door, my mind a frantic loop of useless ideas. Call the police. That was the only sensible thing left. Why hadn't I done that the second I saw the empty house? Because I was a father, and a father's first instinct is to act, to fix, to protect with his own 2 hands. But my 2 hands were failing me. I pulled out my phone, no service, of course. A dead zone in her backyard. It was as if the world itself was conspiring to keep her imprisoned. That's when I saw it. Propped against the side of the house, hidden behind a large hydrangea bush, was an axe, not a big splitting maul but a sturdy fireman-style axe. The kind you keep for emergencies. It was Chloe. She was always prepared. A sob of relief caught in my throat. I grabbed it, feeling the familiar, reassuring weight of the tool. It felt like an extension of my own will. I hefted it, walked back to the shed and looked at the door, not the lock this time, the wood around the lock. Chloe, cover your face and your ears, I'm coming in. I swung the axe, the blade bit into the wood with a satisfying thunk, sending splinters flying. I pulled it back and swung again, aiming for the same spot. Again. The sound was deafening, a primal rhythm of destruction and hope. With each swing I felt the wood give way, the hole growing larger. I could smell the fresh pine and the stale, dusty air from inside. After what felt like an eternity, the hole was big enough. I dropped the axe and peered into the gloom. It took a second for my eyes to adjust, and then I saw her. She was crouched in the corner, her knees drawn up to her chest, her hands covering her head. Her clothes were dirty, her hair a tangled mess. She was thinner, paler, but when she lowered her hands and looked up at me, her eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, held a light I thought I'd never see again. Recognition, relief, love. "Dad," she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. I reached through the hole, my arms stretching towards her. She scrambled forward on her hands and knees and grasped my hand with both of hers. Her grip was weak, but it was the most powerful thing I'd ever felt. Her fingers were bloody and raw from tapping against the wall. I couldn't pull her through, the hole wasn't big enough. I had to open the door, but the lock was still on the hasp, holding it fast. The axe. I pulled my hand back, grabbed the axe, and with 2 more swings I shattered the hasp itself. The door swung open on its creaking hinges. And there she was, my daughter, standing on unsteady legs, blinking in the sudden light. She looked so fragile, a ghost of herself. I dropped the axe and stepped forward, my arms open. She fell into them, a dead weight, and I held her. I held her as tightly as I could without breaking her, my face buried in her matted hair, which still, incredibly, held the faint scent of her lilac shampoo. She was sobbing, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body, and I was crying too, silent tears that ran down my face and into her hair. "I've got you," I whispered over and over. "I've got you, Daddy's got you." We stood there for a long time, holding each other in the shadow of the little yellow shed. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The hummingbird feeder still swayed silently. But the world, which had felt so cold and empty just an hour before, was whole again. The tapping had stopped, and in its place was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard, the quiet, shaky rhythm of my daughter's breathing against my chest.